and welcome to this week's Q&A for students, for parents, and for educators. Purpose of this Q&A is simple. We want to empower with as many resources and strategies and tips as possible to help students succeed, parents succeed, and educators to succeed. There will be a question presented each week from you, the viewer, and we'll address that question as best as we can. To submit a question, you go to tinyurl.com/Eduology Q. In the comments section below, if you got any suggestions or tips or tricks and strategies, please post them in the comments below. It still takes a village, so let's get started, shall we? This week's question comes from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Let's get started. Here we go. I have 2 brand new teachers in my grade level, and I am a second-year teacher. They ask me all these questions, and I'm still trying to figure it out for myself. How do I balance this new unofficial role? Well, congratulations. Yeah. Woo! You have become that unofficial mentor teacher. And that balance is really, really tough. No lie there. No lie there. That balance is tough. My suggestion to you, number 1, is to reflect. Go back and think your first year being a first-year teacher. Try to remember, and if you can remember, then follow. Song. Okay, so reflect back to when you were a first-year teacher. Think about this for a moment. Remember how lost you felt at times? You remember how confused you felt at times? Remember how alone you felt at times? Remember all those questions you had about the school and about the school culture, about the school's life, about the teacher life? You remember all the questions you asked about the printer? How does it work? How does the technology plug into here? Who has access to that? How many teacher copies do we have here? How do I submit a packet there? How do we unjam the printer? What in the world is a risograph? I've heard of this risograph thing. How do I use a risograph? How do we use the Scantrons? What technology? Where do we check out the iPads? Where do we check out the Chromebooks? Remember all these questions you had as a first-year teacher? How about the questions on, okay, where's my report cards? Where do I turn them into? Are they paper? Are they carbon copy? For us old school people, remember the carbon copy report cards and the carbon copy progress reports, or digital now? Where do I submit them? How do I ensure that I have submitted them to the proper people so they can print them off or so they can email them out to blah, 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 blah? What about those parent-teacher conversations? Every school does theirs differently from what I've kind of seen and read and heard. And so remember the very first time going through this and your parent-teacher conferences were different and you weren't sure exactly how they were structured. Were they student-led? Were they parent-led? Were there data notebooks? Did I pull out just sample work? Or do we just have a conversation with their report cards or with their progress reports? Remember all the side eyes that you would get from coworkers, and you were like, "Are they side eyeing me? Why are they offended at me? What did I do? Did I do something wrong? We need to have a conversation." Remember all those conversations that you had as a first-year teacher, and you asked somebody else, and they listened. So now let's reflect and let's flip this. This is now your role. For me, it was that way, the exact same way. There were days that I felt overwhelmed and I was troubled. And the reason why I was troubled because, the student cursed me out and I was ready to snap because this student just talked to me like he was grown and he was squaring up, ready to fight me and whatnot. I needed someone to talk to. Or those times where the good student cried and found out that it was about, that good student's bad home life, and even that bad student, that student who was a troublemaker, and then you found out why they were often trouble at school or why they were often sleepy at school, and I needed someone to talk to about that. Or those test scores that came back and they weren't the way that I thought they were going to be, and you really thought that you were going to get great test scores this year because you guys practiced and did test prep and you made it authentic and you did all this and all that, and the next thing you know, you still have bad test scores. Yeah, or you wanted to cry because you knew that student wouldn't eat for the weekend. And so you would try your best to try to find some services that would provide a backpack full of food or a connection where there was like a Meals on Wheels or something and all that. Remember all of those things? I do. And I remember venting to a teacher about it. I remember having a support system from somebody just saying, help me, I'm overwhelmed, I feel alone. Never forget that feeling. Althea Gibson says this quote, no matter what accomplishments you make, somebody has helped you. They are looking at you and they're looking to you because you can relate. Perhaps they're coming to you because you are a second-year teacher. And so you've had a full year to kind of practice this thing. And so now you can offer some encouragement to them even better. Never forget, never ever forget that balance is tough. It truly is. The second thing, that balance is tough, but you've got to also create some of the balance. So set up a few guidelines, set up some situations where you can do what you need to do and not necessarily feel overwhelmed. One of the things is to thoroughly teach them how to do it the very first few times. I do, we do, you do. So show and model to them what your school or your grade level's culture should look like. Show and model to them what parent-teacher conference looks like. Is it student-led or is it parent-led? If it's parent-led, then this is what it looks like. If it's student-driven, then this is what it looks like. Here are some prompts. Here are some probing questions to prepare for. Go ahead and show and model with them. What I enjoyed was we used to practice with this. Had a group of great teachers and we had some newbies join the squad. And so we would actually do a walkthrough with the newbies just so they could be as prepared as possible. That works. Practice role play with them. I would be the crazy parent. I enjoy being the crazy parent. And I would be the crazy parent and I would talk to them this way. Well, how will you act if you did this? And I did the head movement and all that. But it prepared that teacher. That teacher came out more prepared for her parent-teacher conferences. The exact same way there. Show that sometimes there may be some initial hand-holding. There are some people who just do not get it that very first time. It takes 21 times to create a habit. So perhaps they don't get it that first 7 times. Perhaps you still need to handhold them a little bit just to ensure the more work you do on the front end, the easier it is going to be during the back end. So if you're asking this question now in the fall, work with them during the fall. I guarantee you by the springtime, they've got this thing done. They know how to do report cards by then. They know how to do progress reports. They know how to talk to parents, why to talk to parents, and what questions to ask to talk when they're talking to parents. Another thing I would suggest, collaborating with them on Google Docs. If you guys do this thing together, then it's the buy-in. So you have these brand new teachers who are unfamiliar and they're still trying to pick up and they're still trying to learn. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to learn your system. So instead, if you guys collaborate together, instead of them learning your system, you guys can create a system together and it's going to be much easier for them to learn. I would suggest doing something like that. That way they can understand the why behind they do things. That way they can adapt it to fit their their classroom's needs and their parents' needs versus, well, I have to do it this way because this second-year teacher did it that way. Another thing I would suggest is 515. 515 is something that I saw from an administrator, and basically it was, is this a 5-minute question or is this a 15-minute question? And just kind of tell them up front, hey, is this a 515? And the reason why is because I still have to do blah, 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 blah. Over here doing my planning period, I still have to do blah, 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 blah after school. So if this is a 5-minute conversation, I've got 5 minutes, I'll give that to you. And then you'll use those active listening skills for those 5 minutes. If it's a 15-minute conversation, but you only have 5, you let them know up front. And that way they can't get salty. They won't be upset because you don't have 15 minutes to give them. Perhaps later you do, but in that moment you don't. So try the 515. The 515 works really, really well. At first, it almost seemed rude, but letting them know up front, hey, I really, really do want to talk to you all, but this is 515. I've got 5 minutes to give you, or I've got 2 minutes to give you because I still have to go pick up my kids from here, or I still have to run by the bank, or I've got some parental duties, or perhaps not even tell them, just, hey, is this a 515? If this is 15, I've got 15 minutes for you. Let's go. But at the end of this 15 minutes, I do have to go back to work or whatever. Another suggestion I would do, I would turn off the lights. And I would let them know, hey guys, if you ever see me inside of my rooms with my lights turned off, it's because I'm really in that moment. I'm really trying to work that over. I'm trying to blah, 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 blah. And I'm kind of that way now, where I'm slowly turning into an introvert. I love speaking. I love talking to people, but I really like to just be at home. And so I know that I have a word limit. And I know once my word limit is reached, it's going to be pretty difficult to get past and go beyond that. And so inside of the classroom, I would suggest perhaps saying some of those same things. Hey guys, I really, really value the time we spend together and talk together and collaborate. But I know I've got like 19 other preps that I need to do for the rest of my class. So if you ever see me in my room with the lights turned off or my door shut, just know that I'm not ignoring you. Just know that I'm really, really in that moment trying to do X, Y, Z. Another way is use your phone. Hey, my phone is available anytime from this time to that time. 5 heartbeats. What are my hours? My office hours are from. And let them know, hey, you can call me anytime up until this point. After this point, it's family time. After this point, I've got to recover. I got to sleep. I got to do whatever you need to do. Another thing, email, Snap, GroupMe, Instagram, Facebook groups, whatever technology affords you. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be a face-to-face conversation. Sometimes you could just set up some things where if they say, how do I do blah, 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 and you can email it to them. Better yet, you can create a folder inside of Dropbox or create a folder inside of Google Drive and then put and stash all of those resources in there. What do the procedures of the first week of school look like? Here's a folder for that. What does after school daycare look like? Here's a folder for that. What does fire drill and security drill and lockdown drill and tornado drill and earthquake drill? What do those look like? Here's the procedures for that. Put all that inside of a folder, inside of like a Google Drive or a Dropbox Drive, then you're good to go. So when the teachers come asking those questions, you can say, oh yeah, that's inside of our folder. It's in there. If you need help, I'll show you where it is, but it's inside of our folder. I remember we put it in there. Or if you guys are working together, they will remember that. Oh yeah, that's inside of our whatever grade level folder. Try your best to use some of those strategies. So let's wrap this thing up. The very first thing, try to remember and reflect how you felt that first year. Were you supported? Were you not supported? What made you successful? What made you feel like a failure? Was it because you didn't get that support or you did? Try to always remember that. The second thing, set up some guidelines. Set up some things that you can put in place where you can be successful, where you can help your teachers become successful, and then where you don't go crazy as much. So I appreciate that question. What a great question for this week. As always, let's keep this conversation going below. If you got any tips and tricks that you want, please, at the very bottom of the comment section, go ahead and add some strategies. How do you mentor teachers when you may or may not be sure of it yourself? Any additional resources, post them in the comment section below. Tune in to next week for our next Q&A, and thank you for watching. I really value and appreciate that you guys are watching these videos. And for those commenting below, I really, truly appreciate you also. Thank you for participating. As always, it still takes a village to raise today's children and to get them prepared for tomorrow. See you next week. Thanks a lot.